The key turns in the lock, just like it does every evening. Same grating sound, same satisfying click. But tonight, the air inside my house hits me differently. It's thick, cloying, like a perfume I don't own has exploded and seeped into the very walls. My perfume is light, citrusy. This is heavy, musky, a stranger's scent in my sanctuary. I drop my bag on the entryway table, the thud echoing a little too loudly in the sudden silence of my own home. My shoes, sensible heels I kick off with a sigh of relief, look out of place next to a pair of stilettos I've never seen before. They're aggressively red, impossibly high, gleaming under the soft hall light like a warning. My heart starts a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a wild bird trapped. I walk slowly, each step a conscious effort, down the hall towards the living room. Laughter. Not Mark's easy chuckle, the one that used to make my stomach flip. This is different. His, yes, but also a woman's. High-pitched, a little too bright. It stops the moment my shadow falls across the doorway. There he is, my husband Mark, lounging on our sofa, the one we spent weeks picking out, the one where we've shared countless quiet evenings. And next to him, curled up like a cat, is a woman. Younger, blonde, wearing one of my silk robes. My favorite one, the deep sapphire blue. It looks garish on her, wrong. They both stare at me, Mark with a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Annoyance? Defiance? And she, with a smirk that makes my skin crawl. The air crackles, heavy with unspoken betrayals and the cloying scent of her perfume. My world tilts, shrinks down to this single, unbearable moment. The floorboards beneath my feet feel like they might just give way. This is it. This is the before and after of my life, cleaved in two by a pair of red stilettos and a stolen silk robe. If you've ever had the ground beneath you vanish, ever felt that sickening drop of betrayal that steals the very breath from your lungs, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story already has you holding your breath, please subscribe. It means more than you can imagine to know you're out there listening. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is so I know we're in this together. Our life, Mark's and mine, wasn't a grand Hollywood romance. It was comfortable, like a favorite old sweater, maybe a little worn, a little frayed at the edges, but familiar and warm. We met in college, a stupid meet-cute involving a spilled coffee all over my calculus textbook. He was charming, all apologies and easy smiles. I was flustered, mostly annoyed, but he bought me a new textbook and then dinner, and then, well, then there was us. 15 years. A lifetime or so it felt. We built a life brick by ordinary brick. Weekends spent browsing hardware stores for our first fixer-upper, arguing playfully over paint swatches. Late-night talks fueled by cheap wine and dreams of the future. We wanted the usual things, I suppose. A family eventually. A dog. A garden where I could grow tomatoes that actually ripened. He'd joke about my black thumb, but he'd still dig the beds for me, his hands calloused and strong. Or they used to be. Lately, his hands had been mostly tapping on his phone, a secretive smile playing on his lips. The house we're in now, this house currently tainted by cheap perfume and betrayal, was my dream. My grandmother left it to me. It's an old Victorian, a bit of a money pit, but with good bones and a soul. Mark had grumbled about the upkeep, the drafts, the constant repairs. It's a drain, Sarah. He'd say, we should sell it, get something modern, low maintenance, but I held firm. This house was my anchor, my history. He'd eventually conceded, but I see now there was a resentment simmering beneath the surface, a quiet rebellion against something that was solely mine. Our conversations had thinned out over the past year, like a stream drying up in a drought. Work was always his excuse. Late nights at the office, business trips that seemed to stretch longer and longer. I'd try to bridge the gap, suggest date nights, weekends away. He'd agree, then cancel at the last minute. Swamped, babe. Absolutely swamped, the endearment felt hollow, a habit rather than a heartfelt word. I'd told myself it was a phase, that all long-term relationships hit these lulls. I'd busied myself with my own work, my friends, tending to the old house that he increasingly ignored. I was lonely, yes, but I wasn't ready to admit our foundation was crumbling. I kept papering over the cracks, hoping the structure would somehow hold. I remember thinking just last week how distant he seemed, even when he was right beside me in bed. A physical presence, nothing more. His breathing, even his back to me. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering where the man I married had gone. The man who used to pull me close in his sleep, whose hand would instinctively find mine. Now, there was a chasm between us, cold and wide. I'd feel a familiar ache, a yearning for a connection that felt like a phantom limb, still sensed but no longer there. I'd tell myself, he's just stressed. It'll pass. What a fool I was. Stress doesn't wear cheap perfume and drape itself over your sofa in your favorite robe. The silence in the living room stretches, taut and suffocating. Mark finally breaks it, his voice attempting a casualness that's utterly obscene. Sarah, you're home early, as if my arrival time is the most pressing issue here. Not the strange woman wearing my clothes, lounging on my couch, in my house. The blonde, she doesn't even have the decency to look uncomfortable. She just appraises me, a slow, deliberate scan from my slightly disheveled work hair down to my sensible, boring shoes. Her smirk widens. It's a look of triumph, of possession. Like she's already won a prize I didn't even know I was competing for. Mark, I manage, my voice a dry whisper. Who is this? It's a stupid question. I know who she is. She's the late nights, the hushed phone calls, the growing distance. She's the reason my marriage is a hollow shell. He stands up, running a hand through his hair, a gesture he always uses when he's nervous or trying to buy time. Sarah, this is Tiffany. He says her name like it's an introduction at a cocktail party, not the name of the woman currently dismantling my life. Tiffany, this is Sarah. Tiffany. Of course. It sounds like something glittery and disposable. She extends a hand, perfectly manicured nails the same aggressive red as her shoes. Nice to finally meet you, she says, her voice as syrupy and artificial as her perfume. I don't take her hand. I can't. I feel like if I touch her, the poison will seep directly into my skin. I just stare at Mark. What is she doing here, Mark? In my robe? The words feel inadequate, ridiculously mundane for the cataclysm unfolding. He sighs, a put-upon sound. Look, Sarah, things haven't been good between us for a while. You know that. And this is your solution? My voice is rising, a tremor starting deep in my chest. To bring your guest into our home? The word mistress feels too archaic, too dramatic, yet guest is a laughable understatement. She needed a place to stay, he says, shrugging, as if it's the most reasonable thing in the world. Her lease was up. Her lease was up. The banality of it is a fresh slap in the face. My 15-year marriage, my home, my life, all casually discarded because Tiffany's lease was up. I feel a hysterical laugh bubbling up, but I choke it down. It morphs into a cold, hard knot in my stomach. So, you decided she could stay here? I look around the room, my living room. The family photos on the mantelpiece seem to mock me. Us, smiling, arm in arm, in various stages of our life together. Lies. All of it lies. In my house. I emphasize and I see a flicker of something in Tiffany's eyes. Annoyance? Or maybe just calculation. Well, it's my house too, isn't it? Mark says, a defensive edge to his voice. And there it is. The entitlement. The casual disregard for the fact that this house, this beautiful, crumbling Victorian, came from my family, was my inheritance, my sanctuary long before he was a permanent fixture in it. Legally, yes, he'd lived here long enough. We'd mingled finances enough that he probably thought he had a claim. But morally? Emotionally? This ground was mine. She'll be staying in the guest room, he continues, as if that makes it all perfectly acceptable. It's just for a little while, until she gets on her feet. Tiffany pipes up, her voice cloying. We didn't want to upset you, Sarah. Mark was going to tell you. Weren't you, honey? She places a proprietary hand on his arm. Honey. The word grates like sand in my teeth.
Upset me.
The sheer audacity. I feel a sudden, roaring wave of anger, so potent it almost knocks me off my feet. It burns away the shock, the confusion, leaving behind a core of icy rage. My hands are clenched into fists at my sides, my nails digging into my palms. I can feel the blood pounding in my ears. Get out, I say, my voice low and shaking, but with an undercurrent of steel I didn't know I possessed. They both look at me, Mark with surprise, Tiffany with a dismissive little smile, as if I'm a child throwing a tantrum. Sarah, don't be like that, Mark starts, adopting a placating tone that infuriates me further. Let's be adults about this. Adults. He wants to be adults. After ambushing me in my own home with his affair. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. I said, get her out. I repeat, louder this time. My gaze is fixed on him, ignoring Tiffany completely. She's a symptom, a vulgar, perfumed symptom.
He's the disease.
She's not going anywhere, Mark says, his jaw setting stubbornly. He steps slightly in front of Tiffany, a protective gesture that feels like another knife twisting in my gut. This is my home too. We need to discuss this rationally. Rationally. He's standing there with his mistress, who is wearing my clothes in my house, and he wants to discuss things rationally. The absurdity is so profound, it's almost clarifying. The fog of hurt begins to lift, replaced by a chilling, razor-sharp focus. There's nothing to discuss, Mark, I say, my voice surprisingly calm now, dangerously calm. She leaves. Or you both do. Tiffany lets out a little scoff. You can't kick him out. He lives here. Oh, I think you'll be surprised what I can do, I say, looking directly at her for the first time, my eyes cold. Mark steps forward. Sarah, stop it. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? I can hear my voice rising again, hitting a hysterical pitch. You bring your whore into my house, put her in my clothes, and I'm making a scene? The word, whore, hangs in the air, ugly and raw. Tiffany gasps, clutching Mark's arm tighter.
Good.
That's enough. Mark shouts, his face flushing red. You have no right to talk to her like that. I have every right. I scream back, tears finally springing to my eyes, hot and angry. This is my home. My life. What do you think you're doing? The fight, if you can call it that, devolves quickly. Accusations fly. His justifications are flimsy, pathetic. He talks about being unhappy, about us growing apart, as if that somehow excuses this gut-wrenching betrayal, this profound disrespect. Tiffany chimes in occasionally with saccharine defenses of Mark, of their connection, painting herself as some sort of savior to his unfulfilled life. Each word is a fresh wound. I feel myself shrinking, the anger momentarily overwhelmed by a tidal wave of pain. I slump against the doorframe, defeated. How did we get here? How did the man I loved, the life I cherished, become this ugly, sordid mess? He sees my momentary weakness, misinterprets it as surrender. Look, he says, his voice softening, but with an undercurrent of smugness. We'll sleep in the guest room tonight. You take our bed. We can talk properly in the morning. When you've calmed down. He thinks I'll just accept this. That I'll quietly go to my bed, while he and his Tiffany sleep down the hall. In my house. The arrogance is astounding. The first few hours are a blur of disbelief, and a pain so sharp it feels physical. I don't go to our bedroom, my bedroom. The thought of sleeping in that bed, knowing he's under the same roof with her, is unbearable. Instead, I find myself on the old, lumpy sofa in the sunroom, a room I've always loved for its morning light, now a cold, dark refuge. I wrap a dusty throw blanket around me, shivering despite the mildness of the evening. The sounds from the house are muted but carry. The murmur of their voices from the kitchen. The clink of glasses. Are they making dinner? In my kitchen? Using my pots, my pans? Later, the sound of the guest room door closing, a soft, definitive click that echoes the finality of what has happened. I lie there, staring into the darkness, tears streaming silently down my face, soaking into the musty fabric of the cushion. Each creak of the old house, sounds I usually find comforting, now seems to mock me, whispering of their presence, their intrusion. Sleep is impossible. My mind races, replaying the scene in the living room, his casual cruelty, her smug triumph. Every shared memory with Mark feels tainted, poisoned. Our wedding vows a sick joke. The anniversary gifts, tokens of a lie. The future we'd planned, a landscape now barren and desolate. I feel fool. So blind. Were there signs I missed? Or chose to ignore? Little infidelities of the heart, small withdrawals of affection that I'd brushed aside, attributing them to stress, to tiredness, to the inevitable erosion of time on a long marriage. Now, those tiny cracks seem like gaping chasms I'd willingly walked past. The anger from earlier has subsided, leaving behind a hollow ache, a profound sense of loss. It's not just the loss of Mark, the man I thought he was. It's the loss of myself, the woman who believed in him, who trusted him. Who am I now? A cliché. The wronged wife. The woman who came home to find her husband had moved his mistress in. It's a bad soap opera plot, yet here I am, living it, breathing it. Sometime before dawn, a new feeling begins to stir amidst the grief and shock. A tiny ember of something cold and hard. Resilience? No, not yet. It's something sharper. It's the memory of his words. It's my house too, isn't it? And Tiffany's smug assertion. You can't kick him out, the arrogance of it. The sheer, unadulterated gall. They believe they hold all the cards. They believe I'm defeated, a weeping mess on the sunroom sofa. And maybe for a few hours I was. But the darkness has a way of stripping things down to their essentials. This house. My grandmother's house. A legacy of strong women who endured. It's in my name. Solely. A premarital asset, meticulously documented by my lawyer father when Mark and I got married. Mark had wanted his name on the deed years ago, a formality, he'd called it. I'd almost agreed, for the sake of peace, of showing trust. But my father's voice, stern and wise even from beyond the grave, had echoed in my mind. Protect what's yours, Sarah. Always, I'd made some excuse, put Mark off. He'd sulked for a bit, then seemed to forget. Or so I thought. A sliver of light appears in the eastern sky, painting the dusty windows of the sunroom gray. With it comes a sliver of clarity. They think I'm weak. They think I'll crumble. They've underestimated me.
Badly.
This isn't just about hurt feelings anymore. This is about survival. This is about reclaiming what is mine, not just the house, but my dignity, my future. The tears have stopped. My jaw is set. The shivering has ceased, replaced by a cold resolve that settles deep in my bones. He brought the war to my doorstep. He has no idea what kind of fight I'm capable of when backed into a corner in my own home. The next day dawns gray and oppressive, mirroring the atmosphere inside the house. I hear them before I see them. Her laughter, light and carefree, drifting from the kitchen, followed by Mark's deeper tones. The smell of coffee, my coffee brewed in my machine. It's a grotesque parody of domestic bliss. I force myself off the sunroom sofa, my body stiff and aching from the sleepless night. My reflection in the darkened window is a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, but with a new, flinty look in her eyes. I walk into the kitchen. They're sitting at the breakfast nook, Tiffany in one of my brunch outfits, a floral dress I haven't worn in ages. She looks up, a surprised little "oh" forming on her lips, then quickly morphs into that familiar smirk. Mark has the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, a newspaper held up like a flimsy shield. "Morning," he mutters, not meeting my eyes. "Sleep well?" Tiffany asks, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I ignore her. "Mark," I say, my voice flat, devoid of the emotion that choked me last night. "We need to talk."
Alone.
He glances at Tiffany, a quick, reassuring look. "Tiff, could you give us a minute?" She pouts prettily. "But we were just about to have breakfast." "It's important," I say, my gaze unwavering on Mark. With an exaggerated sigh, Tiffany slides out of the nook.
Fine.
But don't be too long, honey. The croissants will get cold. She brushes past me, her shoulder deliberately bumping mine, that cheap perfume a fresh assault. Once she's gone, the silence in the kitchen is thick. Mark finally puts down the newspaper. Look, Sarah, about last night. Save it. I cut him off. I don't want apologies. I don't want excuses. I want to know what your plan is. He looks genuinely surprised. My plan. Yes, your plan. What happens now? Do you expect me to just accept this? The three of us, living here like some twisted modern family? He shifts uncomfortably. I know this is a shock. But Tiffany, she means a lot to me. And as I said, things haven't been good with us for a long time. You've said that. I reply, my voice still chillingly calm. That doesn't answer my question.
What is
your plan? He sighs, running his hand through his hair. I was hoping we could figure this out.
Civilly.
Maybe you could stay with your sister for a bit? Give us some space to digest. My sister. He wants me to leave my own home. The audacity is breathtaking. I almost laugh. You want me to leave? So you and your Tiffany can play house? In my house. It's our house, Sarah, he says, that defensive tone creeping back in. We've built a life here. No, Mark, I say, my voice dangerously soft. You've built a fantasy on the foundations of my life, my family's legacy. And this house, I pause, letting the words hang in the air, is mine.
He scoffs.
Don't be ridiculous. We're married. Everything is shared. Not everything, I say. Some things are clearer than others, especially when it comes to property law. A flicker of unease crosses his face. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the deed, Mark. The deed that is solely in my name. Sarah Elizabeth Albright. Not Sarah Albright Miller. Just Albright. My maiden name. The name my grandmother gave this house to. His face pales slightly. That's a technicality. We've lived here for years. I've paid bills, contributed to upkeep. Have you? I raise an eyebrow. Or have you mostly complained about the drafts and suggested we sell it for something low maintenance? The memory of his complaints, once an annoyance, now feels like a gift. His detachment from the house, his reluctance to invest emotionally or substantially in its upkeep, will be his undoing. This is ridiculous, Sarah. You can't just throw me out, can't I? I allow a small, cold smile to touch my lips. We'll see about that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to do. I turn and walk out of the kitchen, leaving him sputtering, the newspaper crumpled in his fist. I can feel his eyes on my back, a mixture of anger and a dawning, fearful confusion. Good. Let him feel it. It's a fraction of what I felt last night. The next few days are a strange, surreal dance. I move through my house like a ghost, an observer in my own life. They try to act normal or their version of it. Tiffany prances around, making herself at home, humming off-key tunes, leaving her belongings strewn across surfaces. She answers my phone, Miller Residence, with a proprietary air that makes my blood boil. Mark alternates between forced joviality when she's around and sullen silence when she's not. He tries to engage me in conversation a few times, usually about mundane things, bills, the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom, which is now their bathroom. I give him monosyllabic answers, my face a mask of cool indifference. They treat me like a difficult guest, an inconvenient relative who has overstayed her welcome. The irony is so thick, I could choke on it. I eat alone, usually in the sunroom, subsisting on toast and tea. The thought of sharing a meal with them, of participating in their grotesque charade, is repulsive. I hear them laughing in the evenings, the sound of the TV, the clink of wine glasses. Each sound is a tiny hammer blow against my resolve, but it doesn't break it. It tempers it, hardens it. My friends, when I finally manage to choke out a version of what's happening, are shocked, sympathetic. My best friend, Lisa, offers me her spare room, urges me to leave. You don't have to stay there, Sarah. Don't put yourself through this. I know, I tell her, my voice weary. But this is my home, Lisa. I'm not being driven out of my own home. Not yet. Not until I'm ready. The nights are the worst. I still sleep on the sunroom sofa, the throw blanket my only comfort. Sleep is fitful, plagued by nightmares where I'm wandering lost in the labyrinthine corridors of my own house, chased by their laughter. I wake up exhausted, the cold resolve of the morning often eroded by the lonely, pre-dawn hours. Doubt creeps in. Am I doing the right thing? Is this strength, or just stubbornness? Should I just pack a bag, walk away, let them have their squalid victory? Then I'll hear Tiffany's voice, sharp and demanding, ordering Mark around about some triviality, or I'll find another of her belongings in a place it doesn't belong, her makeup cluttering my bathroom counter, her cheap magazines on my antique coffee table. And the cold fire in my belly reignites. This isn't just about Mark's betrayal. It's about her smugness, her entitlement, her blatant attempt to erase me from my own life. She's not just an affair, she's an occupying force. I start making quiet preparations. Phone calls made from my office during my lunch break, my voice low and urgent. Emails sent from a new, anonymous account. I gather documents, the deed to the house, old tax returns, bank statements. Each piece of paper feels like a weapon, a stone for my slingshot. I'm David, and they are Goliath, blissfully unaware of the battle to come. Mark tries to corner me one evening. Tiffany is out shopping, probably with money that, until recently, was part of our joint account. I'd already started the process of separating our finances, another quiet move he hadn't yet noticed. Sarah, we need to talk. Seriously, he says, blocking my path to the sunroom. His face is drawn, a little desperate. Perhaps the novelty of his new arrangement is wearing thin. Or perhaps he's starting to sense that the ground beneath his feet is less stable than he thought. I'm tired, Mark, I say, my voice flat. This can't go on, he says. You moping around like a ghost. Tiffany's starting to feel uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? She's uncomfortable. I almost laugh out loud. The sheer, unmitigated nerve. Is she? I ask, my voice devoid of inflection. That's a shame. Damn it, Sarah. Be reasonable. His frustration is palpable. What do you want? Do you want money? Is that it? We can work out a settlement. I'll be fair. A settlement. He's already planning the divorce, the carve-up of our life. And he assumes I'm the one who will be bought off, paid to disappear quietly. The condescension stings, but it also fuels my resolve. What I want, Mark, I say, looking him directly in the eye, my gaze steady and cold, is for you to understand the reality of your situation. And what reality is that, he scoffs. You'll see, I say softly. Soon enough. I brush past him, leaving him standing there, a frown etched on his face. The game is changing. He just doesn't know it yet. The air in the house is thick with unspoken resentments and the impending collision of his arrogance with my carefully laid plans. I can almost taste the bitter satisfaction to come. He thinks he's in control. He thinks he's won. He has no idea he's already lost. The turning point, the moment the last vestiges of weary sorrow burned away to reveal a core of pure, unadulterated resolve, came on a Tuesday. I remember it was raining, a relentless, gray drizzle that matched the mood inside the house. I'd come home from work, drenched and tired, to find Tiffany trying on my mother's wedding dress. My mother's dress. It had been stored carefully in a garment bag in the attic. A sacred thing, a whisper of my past, of family, of love that was supposed to endure. And there she was, preening in front of the full-length mirror in my bedroom, which I hadn't slept in for weeks, but which she'd clearly made her own. The dress was too big for her, hanging awkwardly, but she was beaming, pirouetting, her reflection a grotesque mockery. Mark was there, leaning against the doorframe, watching her with a fond, indulgent smile. The same smile he used to give me. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud break, but a quiet, clean severance from any lingering sentimentality, any shred of doubt about what I had to do. What do you think you're doing? My voice was quiet, dangerously so. They both jumped. Tiffany looked like a startled fawn, her hands flying to the delicate lace bodice. Mark's smile vanished, replaced by a defensive frown. Sarah, we were just…
He stammered.
She found it in the attic, Tiffany said, her voice small, a hint of defiance in her eyes. It's beautiful. I was just seeing what it looked like. Take it off, I said, my voice still quiet, but with an edge that made even Mark flinch.
Take it off now.
She hesitated, looking to Mark for support. He avoided my gaze. Come on, Tiff, he mumbled. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea. Her face crumpled into a pout. But it's just an old dress. What's the big deal? The big deal, I said, stepping further into the room, my eyes blazing, is that it's my mother's. It's not a costume for your amusement. It represents everything you clearly don't understand: love, commitment, history. Things you and Mark seemed to have so casually discarded. The silence that followed was heavy, charged. Tiffany, for once, looked genuinely chastened, perhaps even a little scared. She fumbled with the tiny pearl buttons, her earlier confidence gone. Mark just stood there, looking guilty and impotent. That night, I didn't retreat to the sunroom. I went online and found the number for Eleanor Vance, the toughest divorce lawyer in the city. Her reputation preceded her: sharp, relentless, and a champion for women who'd been wronged. My father had known her, respected her. If you ever need a shark, Sarah, he'd said once, half joking, Eleanor's the one you want. I never thought I'd need a shark. But Mark hadn't just betrayed me. He'd unleashed something primal. The initial consultation was a blur of clipped, professional questions and my own surprisingly steady answers. I laid out the facts: the house solely in my name, his affair, the cohabitation, the emotional distress. Eleanor listened, her expression unreadable, occasionally making a sharp note on a legal pad. When I finished, she looked at me, a flicker of something like respect in her eyes. Mrs. Miller? Or is it Ms. Albright you prefer now? Albright, I said firmly. Definitely Albright. Ms. Albright, she said, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Your husband is a fool. A brazen one, at that. Moving his paramour into your marital home, and a home to which he has no legal title, is not just an act of profound cruelty, it's an act of profound stupidity. Her words were like a balm to my raw nerves. Finally, someone saw it for what it was. So, what can we do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What we can do, Ms. Albright, Eleanor said, leaning forward, her eyes glinting, is ensure Mr. Miller and his associate vacate your property with an expediency that will make their heads spin. We can file for an immediate eviction based on trespassing and harassment, given the circumstances. The fact that the house is solely yours is our trump card. It's clean. It's undeniable. Eviction. The word tasted like victory. How soon? I can have the papers drawn up by tomorrow afternoon, she said. We can have them served by an officer of the court tomorrow evening. Make it a surprise.
A surprise.
A cold, delicious shiver went down my spine. The image of Mark's face, of Tiffany's, when confronted not by my tears or anger, but by the cold, hard letter of the law, it was intoxicating. There's more, Eleanor continued. The divorce. Given his blatant infidelity and this outrageous behavior, we can aim for a settlement that reflects the emotional damages and his misconduct. We'll protect your assets, ensure you get what you're owed, and then some. I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in weeks.
Hope.
Not just for survival, but for a future where I was not the victim, but the architect of my own recovery. Do it, I said, my voice clear and strong. All of it. Leaving Eleanor's office, the rain had stopped. The city air felt fresh, washed clean. I looked up at the clearing sky, a fierce, determined smile on my face. The game was no longer his. The board was mine, and I was about to make my move. Mark thought he was dismantling my life. He had no idea I was about to dismantle his, piece by arrogant piece. And I would do it from the moral high ground, armed with the law and a righteous fury he had so carelessly ignited. The next 24 hours would be a carefully orchestrated ballet of legal maneuvering and quiet anticipation. He was expecting tears and recriminations. He was going to get a process server and a lesson he would never forget. The following day is a strange exercise in duality. On the surface, I am the same defeated Sarah, moving listlessly through the house, avoiding confrontation, offering only monosyllabic responses. Inside, however, a storm of anticipation is brewing. Every tick of the clock is a countdown. Eleanor's words echo in my mind. Tomorrow evening. Make it a surprise. Mark and Tiffany seem to have settled into their new domestic arrangement with an unnerving ease. They bicker over what to watch on television. Tiffany complains about Mark's snoring. He grumbles about her clutter. It's a bizarre, twisted parody of a normal relationship, playing out in the foreground of my imploding life. They barely acknowledge my presence, except for the occasional condescending remark from Tiffany or a wary glance from Mark. They believe I am a non-entity, a ghost in my own home, slowly fading into the background. They are so wrong. I go to work, performing my duties with a detached efficiency. My colleagues probably notice my distraction, the dark circles under my eyes, but they politely say nothing. During my lunch break, I speak with Eleanor. Everything is in motion. The papers are drafted, signed, and filed with the court. A process server has been engaged. He will arrive at precisely 7 p.m. Are you sure about this, Ms. Albright? Eleanor asks, her voice professional but with a hint of something softer. Confrontations like these can be unpredictable. I'm sure. I reply, my voice steady. They brought this on themselves. It's time they face the consequences. The afternoon drags. Each minute stretches into an eternity. I leave work a little early, my heart pounding a nervous rhythm against my ribs. As I drive home, I rehearse my role. I must be calm. I must be composed.
No tears, no shouting.
Just the quiet satisfaction of justice served cold. I arrive home to find them in the living room, sprawled on the sofa, my sofa, watching some trashy reality show. Tiffany is painting her toenails, the acrid smell of polish mingling with her ever-present cheap perfume. Mark is channel surfing, a beer in his hand. They glance up as I enter, then immediately return to their activities, dismissing me. Rough day, Mark asks, not even looking at me. You could say that, I reply, my voice carefully neutral. I walk past them, towards the kitchen. I need to keep busy, to stop my hands from shaking. I busy myself making tea, the familiar ritual a small anchor in the churning sea of my emotions. 6:45 p.m. 15 minutes. I can hear their mindless chatter from the living room. Tiffany is complaining about a coworker. Mark is making sympathetic noises. The sheer banality of it, juxtaposed with the legal bombshell about to drop, is almost surreal. 6:50 p.m. 10 minutes. My tea is too hot to drink. I cradle the mug, feeling the warmth seep into my cold hands. I take a deep breath, then another.
Stay calm.
Stay focused. 6:55 p.m. 5 minutes. I can hear my heartbeat in my ears, a frantic drum against the backdrop of their oblivious conversation. I find myself pacing the kitchen floor, a caged animal waiting for the lock to spring. 6:59 p.m. 1 minute. I walk to the living room doorway, leaning against the frame, watching them. They are so comfortable, so secure in their stolen nest. Tiffany laughs at something on the television, her head thrown back, her freshly painted toenails wiggling in the air. Mark takes a long swig of his beer, a self-satisfied smirk on his face. They have no idea. 7 p.m. exactly on cue, the doorbell rings. It's a sharp, decisive sound that cuts through the drone of the television. Mark and Tiffany both look up, startled. Expecting someone? Tiffany asks Mark, an annoyed edge to her voice. Mark shrugs. No idea, he makes no move to get up. You get it, he says to me, a lazy command. For a moment, I'm tempted to refuse, to let him answer the door and face the music himself. But no. This is my moment. I want to see their faces. Certainly, I say, my voice surprisingly even. I walk to the front door, my steps measured, deliberate. My hand is steady as I reach for the doorknob. This is it. The culmination of days of pain, nights of despair, and a newfound, steely resolve. The deep breath I take feels like the last one of the old Sarah. The woman who opens this door will be someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who is finally taking back control. I open the door to a tall, impassive man in a nondescript suit. He holds a large manila envelope. "Mark Miller," he asks, his voice professional, devoid of emotion. "He's inside," I say, stepping back to allow him entry. My heart is a hummingbird in my chest, but my face, I hope, is a mask of calm. Mark and Tiffany are looking towards the hallway, curious, slightly annoyed by the interruption. Mark starts to get up from the sofa. "Yeah, I'm Mark Miller. What's this about?" The process server doesn't waste any time. He strides into the living room, directly towards Mark. "Mr. Mark Miller, you are hereby served." He thrusts the manila envelope into Mark's hands. Mark stares at the envelope, then at the server, then at me. Confusion wars with irritation on his face. "Served? Served with what? Is this some kind of joke, Sarah?" "I assure you, Mr. Miller, it is no joke," the server says, his tone flat. "You will also find a copy of the same documents for Ms. Tiffany Dubois, as she is also named." He glances at Tiffany, who is now looking bewildered, her nail polish brush hovering midair. He pulls a second, identical envelope from his briefcase and hands it to her. Tiffany takes it gingerly, as if it might bite. "Named for what? I don't understand." "Perhaps you should read the documents," the server says curtly. "My job here is done." He gives a curt nod and turns to leave. I close the door behind him, the click of the latch sounding unnaturally loud in the sudden, thick silence. I turn back to face them. Mark is tearing open his envelope, his brow furrowed. Tiffany is just staring at hers, a look of dawning apprehension on her face. The room is quiet except for the rustle of paper as Mark pulls out the legal documents. His eyes scan the first page, then flick up to me, wide with disbelief. "What is this, Sarah?" he demands, his voice a low growl. "Eviction notice? Restraining order? What the hell is going on?" "It's exactly what it looks like, Mark," I say, my voice cool and steady. I savor the moment, the utter shock on his face, the way Tiffany's smugness has evaporated, replaced by a growing panic. "This is my house."
You are trespassing.
"Ms. Dubois is trespassing. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises." "Your house?" he sputters, his face turning a blotchy red. "This is our house. We're married. You can't just kick me out." "Oh, but I can," I say, allowing a small, cold smile. "The deed, Mark. Remember? Solely my name.
Albright.
Not Miller. My lawyer, Ms. Vance, assures me the legal standing is unequivocal." Tiffany finally rips open her envelope, her eyes darting frantically across the page. "Eviction?" He said I could stay here. "You can't do this," she wails, looking at Mark, then at me, her face a mask of outrage and fear. "He was mistaken," I say calmly, my gaze fixed on Mark. "He has no authority to invite guests, permanent or otherwise, into a property he does not own, especially when those guests are unwelcome." Mark is shaking his head, his face a mixture of fury and dawning horror. "This is insane. After 15 years? You do this to me? To us." "You did this to us, Mark." I correct him, my voice like ice. "You, when you decided to betray our marriage, our vows, our history. You, when you had the unmitigated gall to move your mistress into my home, expecting me to just roll over and accept it." "She's not my mistress," he shouts, gesturing wildly at Tiffany, who shrinks back. "We have a connection. Something you and I haven't had in years." "Your connection can find a new place to flourish," I say, unmoved. "Somewhere that isn't my property. You have 48 hours. If you are not gone by then, the sheriff will remove you." The color drains from Mark's face. The fight seems to go out of him, replaced by a stunned, slack-jawed disbelief. He looks at the papers in his hand, as if they are a venomous snake. He looks at Tiffany, who is now openly crying, mascara tracking down her cheeks, her painted toenails forgotten. He looks at me, his eyes wide with a terror I've never seen in him before. You planned this, he whispers, a horrified realization dawning. All those days, you were planning this. You underestimated me, Mark, I say softly. You both did. You saw tears and sadness, and you assumed it was weakness. You never imagined it could be fuel. He sags, the papers slipping from his numb fingers and scattering on the floor. Tiffany lets out a choked sob. This can't be happening, Mark mutters, more to himself than to me. He looks around the living room, at the comfortable furniture, the familiar surroundings, as if seeing them for the first time as something he is about to lose. His kingdom, built on lies, crumbling around him. The silence returns, heavy and suffocating, broken only by Tiffany's pathetic whimpers. The smug confidence, the arrogance, the entitlement, all of it has vanished, replaced by the raw, ugly face of consequence. This is the moment I'd replayed in my mind countless times. The moment the tables turned. And it is every bit as satisfying and as devastatingly final as I had imagined. He thought he was in control. He thought he held all the power. He never saw me coming. Mark stares at the scattered papers on the floor as if they're pieces of a bomb that has just detonated in his life. His face, moments ago flushed with anger, is now a sickly, mottled gray. He opens his mouth, closes it again. No words come out, just a strange, strangled sound, like air being forced from a bellows. Tiffany is a mess. Sobs rack her body. What are we going to do? She wails, looking at Mark, her voice shrill with panic. Where are we going to go? My lease. I told you my lease was up. Mark doesn't seem to hear her. His gaze is fixed on me, a look of utter, abject disbelief mixed with a dawning, terrifying comprehension.
He finally understands.
He understands that this isn't a negotiation. This isn't a fight he can win with bluster or charm or gaslighting. This is the end of his comfortable, duplicitous life in my home. Sarah? He begins, his voice raspy, broken. Please don't do this. We can work something out. She can leave. Tonight.
Right now.
We can talk. Please. The pleading is almost worse than the anger. It's pathetic. It's desperate. And it's far, far too late. There's nothing to work out, Mark, I say, my voice devoid of any emotion except a cold, hard finality. The time for talking ended when you decided to defile our marriage and my home with this arrangement. I gesture vaguely towards Tiffany, who flinches as if struck. But 15 years, Sarah. He chokes out, his hand clutching his chest. Our life together, doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything to me, I say, and for the first time, a tremor of the old pain echoes in my voice. Clearly, it meant very little to you. Or you wouldn't have thrown it away so carelessly, so cruelly. He takes a step towards me, his hand outstretched, a desperate, imploring gesture. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake.
I see that now.
Please give me a chance to fix it. I almost laugh. A bitter, hollow sound. Fix it? You want to fix it now? Now that you're facing consequences? Now that your comfortable little setup is about to be dismantled? Where was this clarity when you were sneaking around behind my back? Where was this remorse when you moved her into my bed, into my life? My voice rises, the icy calm cracking to reveal the raw wound beneath. He flinches back, his outstretched hand falling to his side. His breathing is becoming labored, shallow. His face is slick with sweat. I didn't think.
He gasps.
No, Mark, I say, my voice dropping back to that dangerous quiet. You didn't think. That's precisely the problem. You didn't think about me, about our vows, about respect, about decency. You only thought about yourself. He stumbles, reaching out to steady himself on the back of the sofa. His knuckles are white. Sarah? I don't feel well. Tiffany, momentarily distracted from her own distress, looks at him. Mark? What's wrong? He shakes his head, his eyes wide and unfocused. He tries to speak again, but only a gurgling sound escapes his lips. He clutches his chest again, harder this time, his face contorting in pain. Mark. I take an involuntary step forward, a primal instinct kicking in despite everything. He sways, his legs buckling beneath him. With a soundless gasp, he collapses to the floor, a dead weight, knocking over a small side table with a crash. The cheap beer he was drinking spills across the carpet, soaking into the fibers like a dark stain. Tiffany screams, a high-pitched, piercing sound. Mark. Oh my God. Mark. She scrambles off the sofa, rushing to his side, shaking him. Mark, wake up. What's happening? For a frozen moment, I just stare. At his still form on the floor. At the spreading stain of beer. At Tiffany, hysterical, useless. My carefully constructed composure shatters. The cold satisfaction, the righteous anger, it all vanishes, replaced by a sudden, sickening wave of fear. Not for him, not really, but for the sheer, awful finality of it all. This wasn't supposed to happen. Eviction, yes. Humiliation, absolutely. But this was something else entirely. My training kicks in, the first aid courses I'd taken years ago, thinking I'd only ever use them on a scraped knee or a minor burn. I rush to his side, pushing Tiffany gently but firmly out of the way. Call 911. I snap at her, my voice sharper than I intend.
Now.
She fumbles for her phone, her hands shaking so violently she can barely hold it. I kneel beside Mark, checking his pulse, his breathing. His pulse is thready, erratic. His breathing is shallow, almost non-existent. His skin is cold, clammy. Mark, can you hear me? I say, my voice loud and clear, trying to cut through the fog that seems to have enveloped him. No response. I start CPR, the compressions rhythmic, forceful, a desperate attempt to keep him with us, to keep this from spiraling into an even greater tragedy. Tiffany is babbling incoherently into the phone, trying to give the dispatcher our address, her voice choked with tears and panic. The next few minutes are a chaotic blur. The wail of sirens, growing closer. The flashing lights painting the walls of my living room in frantic strokes of red and blue. The paramedics rushing in, their faces grim, professional. They take over, their movements efficient, practiced. I step back, trembling, my arms aching, my mind reeling. They work on him for what feels like an eternity, the living room transformed into a makeshift emergency room. Tiffany is huddled in a corner, sobbing uncontrollably. I stand by the doorway, watching numb. This man, this stranger on my floor, was my husband. The man I had loved, shared a life with. And now he was this. A medical emergency. A consequence. Finally, one of the paramedics looks up, his expression unreadable. We've got a pulse, but it's weak. We need to get him to the hospital.
Now.
They load him onto a stretcher, an oxygen mask over his face, tubes and wires connecting him to a symphony of beeping machines. As they carry him out, his eyes flutter open for a brief second, unfocused, unseeing. They pass by me, and for a fleeting instant, I think he looks at me. But there's no recognition. Just a vacant, lost stare. Tiffany tries to follow them. I need to go with him, she cries. One of the paramedics, a kind-faced woman, stops her gently. Are you family? Tiffany hesitates, then says, I'm his girlfriend. The paramedic nods. One person can ride with him. If you want. Tiffany looks at me, a flash of her old defiance mixed with a new, desperate vulnerability. I'm going, she says, more to herself than to me. She follows them out to the ambulance, leaving me alone in the sudden, echoing silence of my violated home. The front door is still ajar. The scattered legal papers litter the floor. The overturned table, the spilled beer, the lingering scent of antiseptic and fear. It's a scene of utter devastation. My victory, so carefully planned, so coldly executed, has ended like this. With a man fighting for his life and an ambulance screaming into the night. I sink onto the sofa, the one they had occupied so comfortably just a short while ago. My body is shaking, a deep, uncontrollable tremor. I wrap my arms around myself, trying to hold myself together. What have I done? This wasn't how it was supposed to be. I wanted him out. I wanted him to suffer the consequences of his betrayal. But I never, ever wanted this. The cold satisfaction is gone, replaced by a hollow, aching void. There's no triumph here, just wreckage. The wreckage of a marriage, of a life, and now, potentially, of a man. The gun, as they say, had pointed at himself. But I was the one who loaded it, who pulled the trigger of the law. And the recoil is a shockwave that leaves me breathless. The hours that follow are a strange, suspended limbo. The house is preternaturally quiet, the silence broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the distant, fading wail of the ambulance siren. I walk through the rooms, a ghost in my own right now, touching familiar objects, a photograph, a book, the worn arm of his favorite armchair, each one a fresh stab of a complicated, unwelcome grief. It's not grief for the man he became, but for the man he once was, or the man I believed him to be, for the years we shared, for the dreams that have now turned to ash. I clean up the living room, right the overturned table, mop up the spilled beer, the dark stain already setting into the carpet, a permanent reminder. I gather the eviction papers, his and hers, stacking them neatly on the coffee table. They look so innocuous now, just pieces of paper, yet they hold the power to dismantle lives. I don't know what to feel. Relief? Guilt? Sorrow? It's a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, churning inside me, leaving me exhausted and raw. I call Lisa, my voice flat, recounting the evening's events in a monotone. She listens, offers comfort, offers to come over. I decline. I need to be alone in this quiet, broken house. I need to process. Later, much later, my phone rings. It's an unknown number. I hesitate, then answer. It's Tiffany, her voice small, stripped of all its earlier bravado. He's stable, she says, her words tumbling out. They said it was a cardiac event. Stress-induced, probably. He's going to be okay. They're keeping him in for observation. A wave of something washes over me. Not relief, exactly. More like the absence of a heavier burden. Thank you for letting me know, I say, my voice equally subdued. There's a pause. Then, Sarah,
I'm sorry.
For everything, it sounds genuine, tinged with a weariness that mirrors my own. I appreciate that, Tiffany, I reply. And I do. In this moment, she's not the smug mistress, the homewrecker. She's just another person caught in the fallout of Mark's destructive choices. Scared and alone. I'm at the hospital. I don't know what to do, she continues, her voice cracking. His wallet, his keys, they're all at your house. And my things, our things, their things. The lines are so blurred. The papers still stand, Tiffany. I say, gently but firmly. The eviction. You both need to be out in 48 hours. Or rather, once he's discharged, his 48 hours begin. Yours have already started. Another sob. I know. I understand. I don't have anywhere to go right now. Tonight.
I sigh.
Part of me, the hard, angry part, wants to say, not my problem, but the woman who performed CPR on her estranged husband, the woman who is currently scrubbing his spilled beer off her carpet, can't quite manage that level of coldness. Not anymore. There's a hotel near the hospital, I say. The Crestview Inn. It's clean, reasonably priced.
I'll
call them, book you a room for a couple of nights. On me. A stunned silence. You do that? Yes, I say, weary. Get some rest, Tiffany. We can arrange for you to collect your belongings tomorrow. Just call first. Thank you, Sarah, she whispers. Thank you. I hang up, feeling a profound sense of exhaustion, but also a sliver of something else. Not peace, not yet. But maybe the first stirrings of closure. By extending a small kindness to the woman who had caused me so much pain, I was perhaps taking back another piece of myself. The compassionate part that Mark's betrayal had tried to extinguish. The next few days are a blur of practicalities. Tiffany comes, as arranged, with a friend and a rented van. She's subdued, almost meek, her eyes red-rimmed. She packs her things quickly, silently, avoiding my gaze. There are no snide remarks, no lingering perfume, just the quiet, awkward shuffle of someone retreating in defeat. When she's done, she pauses at the door. "He's asking for you," she says softly. I look at her, surprised. "Marcus?" She nods. He knows he messed up. Badly. I don't reply. I don't know what to say. She leaves, and the house feels emptier.
Cleaner.
But still haunted by the ghosts of what was. A week later, Mark is discharged. His 48 hours begin. He doesn't come back to the house. He sends movers, professional and impersonal. They pack up his clothes, his books, his few personal belongings, the things that were undeniably his. I watch from a distance, a detached observer. It feels like watching the dismantling of a museum exhibit, artifacts of a life that no longer exists. Eleanor Vance handles the divorce. It's surprisingly swift, uncontested. Mark, humbled by his health scare and the stark reality of his legal position, doesn't fight. He signs the papers, agrees to the settlement. It's generous, more than fair to me, reflecting his misconduct. But it feels like fool's gold. No amount of money can truly compensate for the wreckage of a shared life, the betrayal of trust. Slowly, very slowly, the house begins to feel like mine again. I change the locks. I sage every room, the fragrant smoke chasing away the last lingering traces of cheap perfume and bitter memories. I rearrange the furniture, reclaim my bedroom, fill the spaces with things that bring me joy, books, plants, music. The sunroom, once my refuge of sorrow, becomes my sanctuary of peace again, filled with morning light and the aroma of good coffee. There are still moments, of course. A song on the radio, a familiar scent, a forgotten photograph tucked away in a drawer that bring a pang of sadness, a ghostly echo of what was. But they're fewer now, less sharp. The anger has faded, replaced by a quiet strength I didn't know I possessed. I learned that I am resilient, that I can face betrayal and emerge not broken, but stronger, wiser. That my home, my grandmother's legacy, is truly mine, a fortress I defended and reclaimed.
Life moves on.
I focus on my work, my friends, on rebuilding. I plant that tomato garden I always wanted. Most of them ripen. It's a small victory, but it's mine. The house still creaks and groans, but now its sounds are comforting again, whispers of endurance, of survival. Sometimes I think about Mark. I hope he's okay. I hope he learned something. But his life is no longer my concern. My life is here, in this old Victorian, filled with my history, my strength, and the promise of a future I will build on my own terms. The scars remain, a testament to the battle fought and won. But they're healing. And in their place, something new, something stronger has taken root. I survived. I reclaimed my space, my dignity, my peace. And in the end, that's a victory far greater than any revenge. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to fight for what's yours, or rediscover your strength in the face of betrayal, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. It makes this vast world feel a little smaller, a little more connected. Thank you for being here, for listening. And if you haven't already, subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life. Your support means everything.